No, not at the moment.
Well,
when I do, I will surely let you know.
Yeah, fantastic. We are looking for clients.
On the commission.
Okay. That if he's already said that if you have a case around your area and you draw his attention, he will give you commission for.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I will do that. That looks like a business stream to me.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good business. But thank you very much for speaking to us this morning once again. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on what has happened so far from the campaigning in Assin North to the by-election to the swearing-in and some of the comments you are hearing. What do you think?
Well, I find Assin North, the Assin North situation to be very interesting. Interesting because if you follow the posturing of the two major political parties, NDC, MPP, you realize that both were very convinced that they were going to win it. I think that on the part of the NDC, if you really follow the campaigning, you realize that when the NDC goes back to its tactics and its roots, they always win elections. You could see that for once, the numbers of NDC executives, supporters who went to Assin North enabled them to really cover more ground. You could see them in the rain, going from village to village, going from house to house. I think at one time I said on your station that NDC has its voters in particular places. I know that the dynamics are changing, but NDC tends to have a lot of its voters scattered around, and therefore they require more ground game when it comes to campaigning. In this particular instance, you realize that they covered the grounds. They went to the villages, they spoke to the people, and they had a good candidate. They had a message that the people sort of wanted to hear. As against the MPP, who, even though sounded confident, were panicking. You realize that their policies, their campaign was a little bit panicky. You look at the overnight construction of roads, the alleged sharing of money. You see people, and then also just the mindset of the people of Assin North was really remarkable. Because, you know, I always tell people that when you say someone is an illiterate, in your mind, he's only an illiterate because he probably does not speak English. But an illiterate person is not a stupid person. And so this thinking that you can fool everybody because probably they don't speak the best of the Queen's language or they don't speak English, it's something that politicians always have to have it at the back of their mind. And as they say, you can fool the people some of the time, but you can't fool them all the time. So I think that the government's approach, the ruling party's approach, that they were literally going to influence, blatantly buy votes and give money and all of that in the hope that it will sway people's mind, for me, didn't work. And it's not something that has really worked. The fact that it works in your stronghold does not mean that it will work everywhere. But for what the takeaway from this is also the fact that when NDC manages to be vigilant, when they have numbers to police elections, they tend to win. The same thing, you know what happened in Kumawu. Even though they did not win, at least they increased their numbers. And I'm still wondering where the 9,000 people who didn't vote in Kumawu, where are they on the voters register and why? Perhaps did they not vote? I will be happy to see what exactly is there. Are these ghost names in one constituency or something else? So in the case of Assin North, I think that the best party won, and I think that the deserving candidate also won, and the best message won.
Best candidate won, best message won, the deserving candidate. You said the deserving party also won. And I want to take you back to something you said about the NDC. The suggestion, and I heard the suggestion from Mr. Franklin Kujo, who said the NDC needs to find out what it did right in Assin North and build on that. Do you agree?
Yes, I think in essence that's basically what I was saying. You know, if you look at the history of NDC politics, starting from, I'm talking about democratic rules, starting from former President Jerry Rawlings, you realize that post democratic rule, the PNDCs had a support base in the cities. The student union, the teachers union, almost the middle class people supported the revolution at some point. At another point, when he was going for, he was transitioning into democratic rule, he seemed to have made a very strategic decision, which, in my opinion, has defined the roadmap of NDC's electoral map, which is that take power back to the district, to the rural areas. So he went back with this structural adjustment program, which gave more power to more people, the farmers, the ordinary Ghanaian, and that seems to have affected his base at the middle class level. Most of them you find in the cities. So he not just did that, he also introduced the local government system, which took even more power all the way back to the district. So NDC seems to have its voters more in the hinterland. That requires a lot more resources, a lot more grounds in order to win. That is the reality of NDC's vote. You realize that on the part of the MPP, once the people in the middle class left Jerry Rawlings post PNDC, and they tended to gravitate towards the MPP. Most of these people you find in the cities. So they went to Assin North, same mindset. We can look at the top places where the votes are. Those are where the places we can find our voters, and therefore, if we focus there, we will win. The NDC, on the other hand, also focus on both the city and back to their roots, going to the hinterland and covering more ground and being more vigilant. I think that is the reality of the NDC. If they put numbers, if they cover more ground, if they are vigilant about elections, they will always win. Of course, if they have a good candidate and if they have a good message, they will always win. So I think that the tactics that won them the two elections in Kukumewu and also in Assin North, it and have always been the way they win elections. If you follow the history of voting in Ghana. So I think for once, they did it. They went to the ground. They covered more ground. They had more quality people. They said there's strength in numbers, isn't it? They had more numbers, quality numbers, doing door to door, having messages that was collective. Okay, so it was not like the MPs had his own message. The party, the candidate, everybody had some sort of synergy, and they covered the ground. That is what wins elections for NDC, in my opinion.
And I'm also wondering what you then make of some of the discussions that are currently happening, typically when it comes to the matter of the law. I don't know if you've heard what the Domahini has said and the kind of responses he's getting from the New Patriotic Party. If you have, what do you think? Should he have not said that?
Okay. Well, I mean, before I get to that, if you permit me, first of all, Senna, I think that going to court must always be to seek justice.
Ghana's gold.
And justice, in this case, is for the people who come before you and for the nation. That, for me, should be the basis for someone to say, I'm going to court against you, or I'm taking this matter to court. I'm taking it to court because I believe that justice must be done to all, either the person that is accused or to the nation in this circumstance, because this is a matter of, I think, the republic versus the individual. But when you listen to the president when he went to Assin, when you listen to the young Attorney General, you are left with no doubt that the reason for going to court might not be to seek justice, either for the nation or for or to deliver justice to the individual accused. What did the president say? The president says that don't vote for someone because he's going to jail. He is literally saying that the purpose for going to court in their case, you know that we have this hung parliament, and therefore for them numbers matter. So if you look at the positioning, the thinking of the president, using this as a campaign matter, almost sentencing the guy on the campaign platform, you know that the purpose was to make sure that someday they can politically profit from this. Look at the Attorney General's statement. What did he say? What happened to Adamu Sakande is going to happen to Jachi Kwesi. That is political retaliation.
Radio Gold 90.5.
And so therefore, you have an Attorney General who is a party to a case before the court, basically saying that, in his opinion, no matter what the court will eventually decide, what happened to the former member of parliament that ended up in jail will happen to this person. That, for me, doesn't look like someone who is seeking justice, but someone who is looking for political retaliation, using the tools of the state. In all of these, Sana, I think that extreme care, I was listening to the gentleman you were speaking to earlier. In all of this, extreme care must be taken not to create the impression that Jachi Kwesi somehow is guilty already. That is why the Attorney General's comments are completely unacceptable. That is why the President's preemption and covert direction to the court that the place for Jachi Kwesi is prison is also very, very dangerous. So the tone must not be that somehow people have actually even said tamper justice with mercy, do this, do that. But the tone somehow suggests that the gentleman is already guilty. The case is still before the court, and the court will reserve the right to either throw out the case or uphold it. So in all of this, I suggest that people must be careful, even when admonishing or appealing to whoever to withdraw the case, not to somehow conclude that Jachi Kwesi is already guilty. I think that is very, very important. The other point, in my opinion, is that knowing the motive, the seeming motive of the system, the party, the ruling party, knowing the comments, judging from the comments of the President and the Attorney General, I am a little, I will be surprised if they will back down. If you know these people, this is how they have always been. The more you appeal to them, the more you inflate their egos. And therefore, they will even become even more intransigent because of that. They will do it because the motive has never been to seek justice, maybe, the motive has been to extract political vengeance and also political capital. So the more, whatever you tell them will fall on deaf ears. And if you know the NPP and the current government, they don't listen to citizens. They'd like to do what they want to do so long as they're going to profit from it politically. So, in my opinion, I think that whatever the government does will have consequences. And the consequences could be good for the NPP in 2024, or the consequences could be bad for them. And I think if you look really closely, now the guys have gone back and elected their man again.
Ghana's gold.
The NPP obviously have a very tough election to fight, and every vote matters for them, just as it matters for the NDC in 2024. If they try to put Jachikoising in prison, they can kiss Assin North goodbye. You realize that the attempt to disqualify Jachikoising, plus the ground game and the fact that he's obviously a formidable candidate, not just moved his vote by 2%. He did not just win the current election. He won it by more margins, 2%. I think if the president and his people decide to go ahead with this case and try to imprison him, in the next election, 2024, the MPP must kiss Assin North goodbye, because more people are going to sympathize with the NDC even more. On the other hand, if they listen to, if the people or all these pleas prevail, they could go back and say, well, look, we have your interest at heart. We could have prosecuted this matter. We could have done it this case. We came here, we listened to you, and therefore, even when we believe we had a strong case, we let it go because we have your interest at stake. That gives them some sort of an opportunity to go back to Assin North to say that we still have your interest at heart. Because without that, what will they go and tell the people of Assin North? That will be a difficult election for them in that constituency. Now, let me come back to your earlier question, and sorry that I had to go through all of this. So far, the Domahine has spoken, and I've heard all the insults and accusations against him. I think one of the things I heard was, I don't know whether he's still a Supreme Court judge, Mr. Kujeto, who says that the chief was doing politics.
No, he's a member of the Council of State.
Member of Council
he's a
of
lawyer.
State, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lawyer, never been a Supreme Court judge, yeah.
Yes, the Council of State, sorry. Basically saying on Asase Radio, you know who owns it, that the chief was doing politics. This is a man who is a judge, okay? If you listen to what he said, he did not say the president or the government has no case. He actually said, aside the law, he was only appealing to the Attorney General and the President to consider filing a case of nolli prosequi, or technically just to discontinue the case, because he thinks that it doesn't serve the people well. I've heard all the comments about this Domahine, and also who is also the High Court judge. Look, I have known him in court, and all the people who know Domahine in court, he's a no-nonsense man. This is how he has been even in the judiciary. He doesn't tolerate nonsense in his court. He is a straight shooter who speaks his mind. This has always been who he is. All of a sudden, he's an NDC communicator. All of a sudden, he is. I think these people just don't listen. They'll go and face Domahine's people in 2024 in that region. That's up to them. But what did he say? He only appealed to the president, a man who understands the law, a man who has listened and judged so many cases, looks at this carefully, and a man who is a chief, who is concerned about development in his area, who knows what development means to a community. appeal to the president that, look, where you're going, it is better you consider this option. No, they don't understand. Why did he speak? The next person to have spoken, I think, is the former MPP Attorney General, Mr. Ayikwe Otu. Now, Ayikwe Otu makes the same claim, but they don't make the same allegations against him. Ayikwe Otu says he thinks the president and the Attorney General should file a case of null prosequi, because he thinks that, like I just said, any decision to continue pursuing this case will have political consequences for the MPP going forward. In fact, he probably thinks that it will have nationwide political consequences for the New Patriotic Party going into 2024. And I agree with him. The third people to have made comments are, I think, some Queen Mothers and Chiefs from the Assin North area, who have also appealed to the president and the government to discontinue this case. So for me, I think that there's wisdom in what everybody is saying. What I caution is that it shouldn't be done as if Kwesing is already guilty. I don't think that mindset is helpful. I think that if you ask the Canadian government that what does it mean to receive a renunciation of citizenship from a person who had this as a second nationality, I think the verdict will be very clear. But whatever it is, I think we all have to be careful. But I don't think this government will listen. If they listen, it will only be because they think that they stand to profit from it. These have not shown that they believe in the voices of people other than their own. And so therefore, I don't see anything. In fact, I think they might still pursue the option that, well, we can disqualify him, we can go back again for another by-election. This is a very litigious group. And I see that as a possibility, even though I don't discount the fact that they might crumble under pressure based on the voices that have spoken.
Well, be that as it may, the minority in parliament are indicating that they would, anytime James Echikwesing is in court, they'll be in court with James Echikwesing. And so, like the minority leader said, cooperation will suffer. Good move?
Well, so to be honest with you, while the NDC reserves the right to decide, I don't know the dynamics they have in the caucus. But they should also understand that this is a national parliament. And for some of the bills, I think, whether you're there or not, does not stop them from doing what they want to do. And I also pray that that kind of move doesn't result in collateral damage to the NDC and to the people of the nation, because all of them are there to make laws on behalf of the entire nation. Therefore, just simply, I was going to say, like, commonsensically, and this is not in the negative way, commonsensically, if one member of parliament in the chamber is that important as to boycott the whole house, then how do you explain the entire membership not being in parliament to carry on the duties for the entire nation? So it is a very dicey situation, and whether many Ghanaians or all Ghanaians will think that as a very smart thing to do. Many people are angry. The constituents are angry that this guy is not being allowed to perform his duties. I'm not too sure whether completely boycotting Parliament will win them any more sympathy than they are already getting. And and so I will leave my comment at that.
Well, then, okay, so let me shift to another topic briefly before we end this. I know perhaps you've heard about this See Something, Say Something sensitization project of the government. Now, the UNDP has done a study in the north, and you know, the northern part, especially the upper West Upper is share border with Burkina Faso, where there's a lot of terrorist activities. So that's one of the places you'll assume the focus will be in terms of sensitizing people on drawing attention to potential red flags in their communities. When the UNDP did that survey, people actually did not know what the whole See Something, Say Something is about. I know your interest most of the times nowadays is in security. What does that say about our perceived preparedness for a terrorist attack or alertness in case something of that is to infiltrate Ghana?
Well, I think that see something, say something is actually a national security project. I received that kind of text. There's actually a text message that goes around. Occasionally, you will just get an alert. When you look at it, it's this national security text that says, see something, say something. I hardly check my text messages these days. Things have changed so much. So occasionally when I go into my text inbox, I realize that I received that from the government. On the objectively speaking, this wouldn't have been a bad call. I think it's important that in the world that we live now, threats are becoming more and more international. If you look at the threat environment since Cold War, since World War One, World War Two, World War Three, and the Cold War, and post 9/11, the threat environment has completely evolved, and terrorism is one of them. I don't think terrorism is everything. The other time we had an academic argument about whether or not every country should be focused on terrorism because America or the West are facing terrorism. And my argument on the panel was the fact that Ghana has not witnessed any terrorist attacks. We have not gone to war since independence. We as a nation haven't gone to war. There's this thinking that once America and the Western countries face some security problem, it becomes a global problem. I get it that now this is not a problem of America alone. This is a problem of the world. But I think in having policies, it is important that national security policies tend to reflect the urgent requirements or security needs of the nation. If you ask me, Tana, if you really, really ask me, not to underestimate terrorism at all, because it can. If you look at the sub-region, we are almost like the island of peace, really, as far as terrorism is concerned. And there's a reason for that we can go into another time. But if you ask me, I will say that if you ask me about the most important national security problem in Ghana, I will say road accidents, number one. The number of lives that are lost here to accidents is a serious national security problem. If you ask me again, I will say that, for example, the extreme levels of youth unemployment is, for me, an important national security priority. And then if you ask me again, I will say that perhaps as a transitional democracy, the issue of democratic consolidation, especially in the area of internal law enforcement, should be our national security priorities. Therefore, if you have any policy and you say, see something, say something, on on the level for which they are operating, maybe it's okay, but it's important. But I think that if you look at Ghana, we have never actually been taught what to look out for. This is just a campaign that, in my opinion, one government will come and it will pass. If you go to the United States, Turner, for example, people from childhood are taught in schools to be alert. One of the things that an average American can tell you is people's height. Oh, did you see anybody here? You say, yeah, 5 foot by 5'4". They can tell you at least he was wearing a white jacket or a black jacket. He had this height. He looked like this. Those are things that people are trained to be very alert about. And I think that if people are supposed to be helpful in seeing something and saying something, it should not necessarily be confined to the fear of terrorism. It should be confined to every aspect of government. If you see corruption, say something. Okay? If you see somebody is doing the wrong thing, say something. But it looks to me that this particular process, this particular campaign, is not something that is working because people are not used to what to look out for, how to report it, who to report it, who are the immediate agencies to address when you see something suspicious. On the other side, you also have a country that has laws that seems to gag the population from speaking or from even writing about things. You know the laws that they have now about publication of false news or engaging in false things that cause panic, fear and panic. In fact, that's the one I was looking for. There are laws on our books that seems to criminalize or make us an offense when you say something that in the mind or in the mind of the people of the government causes fear and panic. So therefore, if you went to see something and you said it and it became a matter that caused fear and panic, you are subject to prosecution. So that's the irony of Africans, or we Africans, or Ghana, that when we are confronted with a problem, we legislate against it rather than solve the problem. So we have passing laws that technically silences the population, while at the same time asking them to be able to speak up. So I think if this is going to work, it has to be more structured. Say something about what. Is it only about what I see in as a security threat? And what is a security threat to the ordinary Ghanaian? What should be the focus? What should I look out for? Who do I talk to as a first respondent when I see something? So those things are important, and I think we should start it at a much, much earlier age, maybe in the schools. And then as we go along, it becomes our second nature. And therefore, when you see something immediately, like if you travel abroad now, if somebody left his bag unattended to for a few minutes, you see everybody will attend to it. Everybody will report it. There's something here because they think someone has left a bomb. So we need to physically educate our people so it becomes part of their second nature and not sending text messages in the hope that people will know what's something to see and how to report it.
Radio Gold.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Raymond Archer now does risk assessment. So he's a risk analyst and will do risk assessment for you. He is also